Welcome to For the Record. I'm Naomi Coles. In 2020, Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes-Conway announced Vision Zero with an ambitious goal: 0 traffic deaths and serious injuries by 2035. 3 years in, with 12 years yet to go on that goal, it's a bit of a mixed bag of progress. The mayor joins me now. Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk first. Data is a bit tough to analyze here because, 2020, there was something else happening that continued to happen over the next 2 to 3 years that kind of interfered with that data. So how do you kind of analyze whether it's working or not based on how the pandemic also affected traffic?
Yeah, you're right. It's absolutely hard for us to tell. And just in general, when you're looking at traffic statistics, folks like to have more years to analyze to really see a trend because they tend to be very variable. I will say that so far, just based on the 3 years that we have, we do seem to be trending in the right direction. We've had double-digit reductions in serious injuries and fatality crashes for the last 2 years.
I mean, numbers are a bit what you make them, right? Because, well, like the combined fatalities, serious injuries are down. I mean, fatalities are still much higher than they were before the pandemic. I think we had 9 or 10 a year, 2018, 2019. It skyrocketed in 2020.
Yeah.
It's come down a little bit, but we're still roughly double, say, what we saw in 2019.
Yeah. Which is why this work is so important. I mean, I have lost family members to traffic crashes, and I don't want any family to go through what my family went through. It's why that we are taking Vision Zero so seriously. And we look to other cities for inspiration, and there are cities that have effectively used the Vision Zero approach to completely eliminate traffic fatalities.
Completely?
Yes.
Which cities?
So there's cities in New Jersey. Hoboken was one of them. And I've talked to the mayor there, and our staff have talked to their staff to learn what we can from them. I think one of the real keys is that we don't just use one approach. That we use a multifaceted approach, and they talk about it as, a data analysis, enforcement, education, but then also engineering. And the engineering piece is the one that actually takes the longest because we actually have to change the infrastructure and work that into the budget cycle and the construction cycle. And so I do expect in the coming years we'll start to see more impacts from the Vision Zero work because we'll have more projects done.
How long has it taken in other cities, like the city of New Jersey you mentioned, to actually see those results?
It's over multiple years, so it's in the 5-year range, I think, that you start to really see an impact.
So you feel pretty confident if we're having this conversation in 2025, 2028, that we're going to be having a bit of a different tone? I
think so, yes. I mean, I think we are already seeing improvements, and one of the things that's really important in this work is speed. I don't know if people understand how important speed is in the outcome of crashes. We know that humans are fallible, right? Crashes are going to happen. What we want is to make sure that they don't cause serious injuries or fatalities. The faster the car is going, the more likely you are to have a serious injury or fatality. So part of our work is to just slow cars down. And we are seeing that happen. So the work we've done to reduce speed limits, to put in the pedestrian crossings and the rapid flashing beacons and change the feel of our streets is slowing traffic down. I gotta say, I think the #1 complaint I hear constantly from viewers, we see on social media, just generally residents in the city, is critiquing the speed, right? It's the attitude, the complaint is, oh, well, you lower it from 35 to 25 on, Whitney Way or whatever, and people are just going to keep going 45, and they're just going to keep speeding. We've got to find different ways to do it. So I guess, how do you take that approach to combat the chronic speeders, people who don't care about the speed limits? Well, so interestingly, we absolutely hear that too, by the way. I'm sure you do. But it's not true. What we see when we have good data on this, particularly for East Washington Avenue, when we lowered the speeds, it's not that you have no one going 45, but we have shifted the peak downwards. So people might not be going exactly the speed limit, but they're not going nearly as fast as they used to be going. You mentioned East Wash, which is obviously one of those chronic issues. I don't want to say a chronic issue, but I mean, there's been a number of things, right? You got a drag racing tradition there. You have
a road that has turned into a pedestrian corridor in the last 10 years, but is still a major transit route. Do you feel like you're actually seeing progress? And I asked that after we just saw two deaths there again very recently.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly have not solved all the problems on East Washington, but I do feel like we're making progress in part because of the speed numbers that we have in the corridor, and in part because you're starting to see some of the improvements that we're making in terms of the infrastructure. And so one of the things that we'll be doing is bringing in bus rapid transit, which will take, during non-peak hours, will take a lane. And I think have a significant impact on traffic speeds. And one of the things that I think is really fascinating is in terms of driver behavior, the width of lanes, how small you feel like the street is really impacts how fast you feel comfortable going.
Oh, as a driver, for sure.
Right?
The flex lane freaks me out because the thing is right there.
Oh, yeah, it's so small, right? Yeah, so that's exactly right. And so one of the things that we look at is how can we influence how drivers feel about the street that they're driving on. And I think when we have bus rapid transit on East Washington and make some adjustments on the lanes, you'll start to see that feeling like it's a smaller street. And we're going to use that technique in other places around the city as well. But again, it does take some investment in construction to make that work.
Mayor, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show.